This is Voicemail, the Universal Postal Union's podcast covering the wonderful world of mail. I'm your host, Ian Kerr. My guest in this episode is Dr Kunio Mikuriya, Secretary-General at the World Customs Organization. I'm joined by Dr Kunio Mikuriya. He's the Secretary-General of the World Customs Organization. Secretary-General, welcome to the UPU Voicemail podcast. The first question we ask all our guests is about your first memory of the post. So tell us, what's your first memory of the post?
Well, my first memory is a bit peculiar or family-oriented because my grandfather used to work in the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication. So since my very young days, I was hearing his story, and almost 100 years ago, he was even sent to Europe to see how post and telecommunication are functioning in those countries. Therefore, my memory goes back almost beyond my memory, and since then, my connection with the post has been well established.
You've been leading the WCO for over 14 years now. So why customs, and what led you to pursue this career?
Well, after finishing my university, I joined the Ministry of Finance, where I was dealing with, public finance, fiscal area, banking, etc. But customs belongs to the Ministry of Finance. And when I was affected as a rotation to customs, I found that it is very interesting and passionate because it is very hands-on. If you do something, if you decide a new policy, I immediately get the return or feedback from the ground. And customs are located at the borders, and they implement almost all policies, whether they are trade policies or fiscal policy or tax policy or security. And I can see that wide range of diversity of works. That is fascinating. And then I decided to stay on, and even I came to Brussels to the World Customs Organization. So it is always fascinating and passionate. I have been passionate to see how it works, and from customs window, you can see the history and the people and the culture of many countries.
Tell us then, as Secretary-General, how do you see the main mission of the WCO, and how has that mission evolved over time? What's specific about the WCO's mandate in this digital era?
Well, customs function mission is essentially collecting revenue at borders and facilitating trade, and also protecting citizens from illicit trade. So that hasn't changed, but it has evolved over years. And WCO has been addressing those issues. And in the end, what we say is that borders divide, customs connects. This is our vision. And we want to ensure connectivity only for legitimate trade. And we need to manage well the risks at the borders. And what WCO does is to develop standards for custom procedures to address all those issues of revenue collection, facilitating trade, and protection of society. And also we promote cooperation among customs, but also customs and business and public sector. So cooperation with Post is natural, our DNA. And then we provide capacity building to implement global standards that WCO maintains, and also promote cooperation. So those are the areas, and now comes digitalization. And when we talk even all those areas, facilitating trade, what you have to do is that digitalization, moving towards paperless trade, and if with good risk management, moving towards contactless clearance. So those are the areas that we have to see. But also we have to protect our revenue and society. And the other sides, organized crime and others, they are also using digitalization. So we have to continuously improve our digitalization and think about more technology, how to use blockchain or how to use AI, artificial intelligence. So there are many challenges coming, and this is what the WCO has been addressing. And in terms of digitalization, of course, e-commerce is one of the challenges.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Secretary General, because there's so many themes that you were just touching on there that will be instantly recognizable by postal operators and by postal administrations around the world when you're talking about digitization and the modern challenges in dealing with cross-border trade and cross-border e-commerce. So let's just continue on this theme then. The WCO represents 185 customs administrations that collectively process, if I understood correctly, about 98% of world trade. So how do you see the role of customs in the facilitation of global trade and e-commerce?
Well, towards the end of the 20th century, globalization came. And globalization, why it has happened? First, it was the manufacturing process. Was divided and outsourced the parts of manufacturing to the countries which have been more competitive, most competitive. That means that goods are, circulating. If you look at trade volume, more than half of them are intra company trade, meaning that many half products are moving around. That is really, it is on the condition that border crossings are good, because to get the final product, those components go through borders so many times. So this is what customers should make sure that they address the issue of global value chain. And without customs efficiency, you can't really realize that global value chain and the benefit of global trade. And then that was more on the say containers trade. Whereas in the 21st century, what we see is the rise of small packages through e-commerce. Because now that those IT technology that enabled globalization, but also came to consumers and small and medium-sized enterprises, those ones hitherto were not necessarily participating in global trade directly. But with this e-commerce, arrival of e-commerce, this is a game changer. So consumers and micro and SMEs could now participate directly into trade. So this is where we have to make sure our mission that yes, the e-commerce trade should go through, including postal supply chain, should be efficient and speedy clearance is there, while we protect our citizens not to get inside those small packages, dangerous goods or prohibited goods. And at the same time, we get revenue to make sure that the state gets necessary fiscal foundation. So that is what I see that changes over years. And from globalization, global value chain, but also increasingly e-commerce that is there. So customers should develop its own new modes of facilitation and also securing supply chain, including postal supply chain.
Let's talk a bit about socioeconomic welfare and development, things like that. How, or in your opinion, how does the level of customs development in a country affect its overall socioeconomic welfare, as well as even the welfare of its citizens and its businesses? And can you identify any major global or regional customs development trends or gaps that you could highlight, please?
One country's development stage or state capacity building starts with customs state capacity building, because it is at borders through trade that any countries make development and getting new ideas and new knowledge. So customs development stage very much reflect one country's development stage. So in this sense, it is very important. And what the customer does is contributing to economic competitiveness. When there are many surveys to, estimate, assess what is your economic competitiveness, like doing business survey, etc. And usually border crossing matters very much. And so this is where we can bring more, necessary elements for economic development. But at the same time, those supply chains could be misused by organized crime. And then if there are many illicit trade, nowadays illicit trade, it's not only narcotics or drugs, but even environmentally hazardous goods and protected fauna and fauna, or even security-related ones, firearms and ammunitions. Customers should ensure that those hazardous goods don't cross borders. And this will really matter for social economic development and also basis for economic development, because if illicit trade is rampant in one country, who would want to invest in those countries? So for those areas of, ensure sound economic development, and also while protecting security of supply chain has become very much related to that customs function, contribution to society. And what I see is that increasingly, globalization is there, but regional integrations are there. In your country, Switzerland, you have many, free trade agreements. And in that way, try to integrate and enhance the integration of your economy into the regions. And this is also ensure better socioeconomic development. But in the end, those result in creating new jobs and higher employment, and also good health. When we look at sustainable development goals, quite often they are related to customs to ensure the high level of life. That depends on the areas that I have mentioned.
How does the WCO cooperate with public and private sector partners to achieve its mandate of enhancing the effectiveness and efficiency of customs administrations globally?
Well, at the borders, customs are there, but it's not only customs, but other government agencies, related to regulation or law enforcement are there. Therefore, coordinated border management with collaboration with those related to government agencies is must to ensure better border management. But also, in the end, our clients are business, and how to ensure that the business understand customs requirement and how to comply with customs and national requirement is very important. And for that, we need to develop trust between customs and business, or customs and other government agencies. And that partnership is what we value. It is the basis, fundamentals of the modern customs procedures.
Now, you hinted earlier about the common interests, shall we say, between customs and posts when it comes to cross-border trade and cross-border e-commerce. And indeed, you could say that posts and customs are indeed historical partners. What are some of the new trends in the posts customs cooperation today? And what are, in fact, some of the common challenges and opportunities?
Of course, with e-commerce, we have common interest because e-commerce, many of them are done through postal supply chain. and customer are there to ensure facilitation and security of those supply chain. And now we are living in the digital era, as you mentioned. Therefore, how to ensure the digitalization of those postal supply chains is important. For that, in 2010, I was fortunate to participate in the Strategic Council of UPU, which was held in Kenya. And we discussed how best we can digitalize postal supply chain together with the customs. And then in 2012, UPU has issued a new regulation to ensure that you use EDI, so you digitalize your CN22 and 23. And now what we see the trend is increasing use of EAD enables timely and effective management of risks and thereby facilitating trade while ensuring security and safety. This is the trend. Digitalization on both customs and post is what I have been observing.
The idea or the concept of cooperation and communication between posts and customers is hugely important, especially as we've just highlighted in the e-commerce age and in an age where security is very important, as you've mentioned, and also that regulations can change. And this sort of highlights the importance of that cooperation at a national level, I suppose, between posts and customs. So do you have any advice for customs administrations and postal operators on how they could improve their cooperation at a national level?
Of course, it is dialogue, and that is the basis of cooperation. Therefore, what we recommend is not only dialogue at day-to-day operational level, but higher strategic level as well. So nationally, if you can do a really high-level commitment through dialogue between two organizations would be really what we recommend. And to concretize that, we recommend concluding a memorandum of understanding between customs and post offices at the national level, so that to elevate the level of dialogue and understand each other's challenges and jointly seek for solutions.
The WCO-UPU Contact Committee was established in 1965. So what are the main synergies that keep this cooperation alive and fruitful over so many decades?
Well, because we have much to cooperate between us. So, and in developing cooperation frameworks and technical solutions, they have been doing excellent jobs. In addition to those committee, or based on the trust created in this committee, Customs and Post, now UPU WCO, we participate in each other's workshops and global events, and sometimes we issue a joint letter to members during the COVID-19 pandemic. We issued a joint letter to our respective members to enhance cooperation. And these tangible deliverables and strong ties is what we make us stronger together. And last year, we renewed the cooperation agreement. That shows that we have more to do in the future.
Finally, let's talk about the upcoming WCO-UPU Global Conference in Tokyo this June. What topics are on the agenda, and who do you think should be participating or attending?
Of course, we'll talk about the paradigm shift of trade landscape surrounding customs and post. How best we can secure compliance and managing risks, and especially in terms of cross-border e-commerce, what work, especially how to exchange electronic advanced data, and based on that shared data, how we could facilitate risk management. We would like to hear from best practices on using digitalization and technology from our members. That way, we would be prepared for, business continuity, even natural disasters or pandemic or whatever happens, and jointly we can do that. Customs post cooperation synergy is very important. Therefore, I would urge policy and decision makers as well as operational experts to join this conference. And not only post and customs, but relevant ministries or departments responsible for IT and telecommunication should also join, because it is about digitalization. And in that way, I hope that we can, we expect your participation, and then we can identify new and emerging challenges, but also we can enhance our joint capacity to solve the issues together.
We've covered so many of the themes today that have come up time and time again in these discussions. We're talking about cooperation. We're talking about exchange of information and agreements. We're talking about digitization, stimulating trade, and what that even means for people in their respective countries and the citizens and the businesses. It's wonderful to have a conversation that ties all of this together, Secretary General. I'm looking forward to more cooperation between the postal world and the customs world. Dr. Kunio Mikuriya, Secretary-General at the World Customs Organization. Thank you very much for joining us on the UPU Voicemail podcast today.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Voicemail, the official podcast of the Universal Postal Union. Subscribe to the podcast on your favourite podcast platform and you'll get each episode downloaded to the device of your choosing as it's released. My thanks to the team at the UPU for their help putting together this episode. I'm your host, Ian Kerr, and I look forward to your company next time on Voicemail, the podcast of the UPU.